Beloved, on tonight, I want us to pick up from a conversation that we began on last week. And that is, we looked at Daniel chapter 5, verses 10 through 12. And we looked at Daniel having had this excellent spirit in him. I want to talk a little bit about that, talk about wisdom in particular, because that was certainly an element of his excellent spirit. There are many things that we could say about Daniel, and time will not permit. But we see this idea of this excellent spirit in Daniel 5 and verse 12. We also see it again in Daniel chapter 6 and verse number 3. A part of what made Daniel exhibit what was described as an excellent spirit is because he had something that maybe we need to think about praying for just a little more, and that's called wisdom. Everybody wants to be smart. People want to get degrees, and folks get degrees, love to talk to you about their degrees and brag on how many degrees they have. People want to have information, and we live in a time where technology puts information right in the palm of our hands. Used to be, if you want to know something, you had to go to the library, look in the card catalog system, know something about the Dewey Decimal System, have an old librarian who would do some research or help you to learn how to do your own research. There was no internet, no Google, just old dusty books, encyclopedias, and magazines. But now we have access to information, and people love to talk about information they have. Have you ever thought about, in all of our desires for knowledge, for information, even our desires for material things and monetary things, that sometimes we have overlooked this valuable thing called wisdom? What exactly is wisdom? Well, Proverbs 1 verse 7 says that the beginning of wisdom is the fear of the Lord. What does it mean to fear the Lord? Well, we can look at fearing the Lord, number one, as acknowledging Him. When we talk about acknowledging God, sometimes we think people who are atheists or agnostics are those who need to learn to acknowledge God. But sometimes we're not acknowledging Him, not because we're atheists or agnostic, but we don't acknowledge Him because we're just too busy. Too busy living lives, doing all the things on our to-do lists, and running around trying to handle all of our errands, sitting in traffic, and all of the stuff and all of the people we're responsible for. But you begin to have wisdom when you learn to acknowledge God. You begin to have wisdom, secondly, when you are accountable to God. See, fear is not just recognition. We ought to be afraid of God. That's right, we should fear God's wrath, God's anger, God's justice, God repaying us rightly what we deserve. Accountability to God means that it doesn't matter whether or not people know, God knows. Not only are we accountable to God in exhibiting that respect, showing the respect that allows us to have a wisdom in that we are acknowledging Him and we are accountable to Him, but are we even available to God? Can God use us? Think about, again, how busy our lives are. It was so impressive during the pandemic when people talked about how much they enjoyed the downtime. Oh, I can listen to the Word of God, and I can get on this program and that church program. Oh, I've got time to clean out my attic. Oh, I've been wanting to get my garden done. All the stuff that people have claimed that they've just been too busy and catching up with old friends and family members. And what did we do as the pandemic has, in some sense, come to an end? People are right back where we were, just being too busy. So, are you available for God? Do you acknowledge Him? Do you recognize you're accountable to Him? Can God use you? And availability is not just about what one does on Sunday. It's about, have we given our lives to Him and surrendered to Him? That's what it means to have wisdom. Now, wisdom is not necessarily knowledge. See, sometimes people think that knowledge makes you wise. Listen, I used to work for a college, and I worked with people who had master's degrees, some had 2 and 3, even individuals with PhDs. And I don't say this in any disrespect to any person with higher education, but I can most assuredly tell you that having a degree does not make you wise. I have seen well-educated colleagues make decisions, deciding on things that you just scratch your head and wonder how on a good day could they have thought that was a good decision. Sometimes some of the most sensible things, some of the most educated people cannot seem to decide or determine. Now, I have a master's degree, so I'm not complaining about degrees as if I'm jealous. It'd be one thing to say, well, you only have an 8th grade education. You're just envious. But I can most assuredly tell you from working around academic people with multiple degrees, a degree does not make you wise. I can also tell you that wisdom does not come from experience necessarily. How many people do you know keep repeating the same mistakes over and over and over again? Sometimes we have young fools because they do foolish things. And sometimes we have old fools because they keep on doing foolish things. Wisdom is about moral character. It is a grace that comes to us from God. James 1:5 tells us that we are not complete, that we're not even fully mature until we get wisdom. I want to encourage you in your prayers tonight. Pray for your health. Pray for your wealth. Pray for your family. Pray about your job. Pray about your relationships. But pray and ask God to give you wisdom to know how to approach life, how to respond to life, how to live life. This has been another installment of A Few Minutes with the Minister.